right, I hope everyone is enjoying this cool night that we have here. So we are continuing where we left off last week. And before we get into that, whenever we cover a book, we tend to think of the present here and now, what I'm reading into. So I want to briefly touch on what we've learned already so you can see how far we've come as a class. So in lesson 1, we went over, so you're going to be a parent. Lesson 2, effective parenting begins. Lesson 3, understanding the connection between parenting and character. Lesson 4, the roles of a parent. Lesson 5, effective parents have self-control. Lesson 6, effective parents teach self-control. And lesson 7, what we're in now, teaching anger management. So just think of all the things that we've gone through in the parenting book and just remember how important it is that we are going through this for, it's not tomorrow's generation anymore, it's today's generation. Because we need it today, we'll need it tomorrow, and going forth from there. So last week we left off on procedure 5. So that is where we're going to pick up tonight. So it says here, draw students' attention to the points under the heading, let's take it one step at a time, on pages 53 to 54. Discuss the importance of evaluating our own feelings before dealing with an angry, out-of-control child. Stress that taking the time to explore our own feelings as well as the needs of the child can prevent impulsive behaviors that can lead to abuse. All right, so let's turn over to page 53. And it's going to be at the bottom. Let's take it one step at a time. And this is where procedure 5 will begin. So it says here, let's be honest. An angry, disobedient child can be frustrating to any parent. But regardless of how frustrated we become, we must maintain our self-control so that we can role model and teach positive anger management skills before you deal with a child who is angry, rude, and disrespectful. Ask yourself the following questions. Now, I want to bring back to, we're going to be cross-referencing a lot, so get your pens out and be ready. So the first question is, what am I feeling right now? And why is it important to deal with your emotions before dealing with an angry child? Think about that. Why is it important that you deal with your emotions before you deal with your child? And remember, the author of The Peaceful Solution gave us an example a while ago with a child had climbed up on the roof and almost killed himself. The parents were so upset that he wanted to hurt the child for it. But is this the right solution for this problem? No, it wouldn't be. So the question puts you in touch with your emotions. If you are angry and your anger is brimming out of control, how will it affect your interaction with your child? Will you be able to effectively teach a child to manage his anger if yours is out of control? Be sure to have your anger under control so that you do not become verbally, physically, or emotionally abusive towards your child. Remember, it's all about teaching. Children don't know until we teach them. All right, so question number 2. What does the child need? Now, when I was going through the lesson, I thought, that's an odd question to put there at a time. What does the child need? Because you're the one who's angry. What do you mean, what does the child need? You're the one who's angry. But when you think about it, it goes hand in hand. Now, this question allows you to evaluate the needs of the child. Is the child lonely? Maybe he needs attention. Is the child disappointed? Maybe he needs reassurance. Is the child hungry or tired? Children can become irritable when running on empty, just like adults do. Have you ever heard or met anyone, or you yourself, in the morning you need your coffee before you deal with anyone? children are much the same. Once they get hungry, sometimes they don't know how to express, Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, I'm thirsty. So they turn to their emotions to express what they're trying to tell you. When we take the time to ask ourselves these questions, we realize that not every situation where a child is misbehaving should be handled in the same manner. Many parents deal with misbehaviors by spanking. It should never be the first means of intervention. And we'll go into more of this later on, but as a parent, or even as an individual, it's very easy to set higher expectations in children than we give them accountable for. Well, my child would never do that. And then you turn around and you see your child doing that. Well, that's where you really have to stop and ask yourself, did I teach my child not to do that? Did I reiterate into them that they weren't supposed to say that? Did I show them the right way when I was doing something that I wasn't supposed to do that? Just like us, children are not mind readers. They rely on their emotions as a means of communication until they are taught otherwise. So until then, we have to think of all these and not set higher expectations for them, nor ourselves as well either. So in addition to evaluating your needs and the needs of the child, you also need to keep the following in mind. Anger is a normal emotion. Who remembers where we went over that previously? Anger is a normal emotion. Where was the first place we went over that? You could shout it out if you remember. Self-control. All right, and it was self-control, page 57. And it says, anger is a normal emotion we all experience at times. Children and adults experience anger for one reason or another. There are many reasons for people to get angry, as there are people. Typo. What might make one person angry might make another person laugh. Whether or not we get angry depends on our personality and character. Although all people experience anger, it can be dangerous if uncontrolled. It can affect the way you communicate and interact. And remember in the self-control unit, it went into how there are different types of anger too. And it just says here, what might make one person angry might make another laugh. Or that is sometimes how people deal with the anger. When they get angry, they laugh. Alright, so it says here, anger is a normal emotion which manifests itself through our lives. But we can handle it appropriately and control it. Next point says, anger is not an invitation to seek revenge or hold a grudge. And remember, from dictionary.com, it says, to hold a grudge is to have and maintain a feeling of bitterness, anger, bitterness, or resentment towards someone for something that they did, especially a wrong that you think they committed against you. And it's just like that quote. It's one of my best liked quotes in the Peaceful Solutions. Not a very encouraging one, but it's still one to hold on to. Anger or resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And it's the same with anger, because anger and resentment go hand in hand. You can't expect to hold on to anger and the other person to just get it, because we're humans. That's not exactly how it works. And it's the same for children. Alright, next point says, anger is not an excuse to hurt yourself or others, nor is it an excuse to destroy property or show disrespect to others, especially those in authority. And when I read that, I remember from the self-control unit, I think it was on page 72, it says, anger simply tells you that something is being said or done that you do not agree with. And it's the same for children as well. Remember, anger is a secondary emotion. There is an event or something said that causes this. It's not the main emotion, but is the result of feeling another emotion. And it's the exact same for children. All right, so let's turn. No, wait, we got one more point here. It says, maintaining anger helps build positive interactions and allows one to solve conflicts peacefully. Let me read that again. Maintaining anger helps build positive interactions and allows one to solve conflicts more peacefully. When you maintain your anger, you figure out what causes you to be angry. It allows you the time to stop and think about, how do I respond to this? Or, my child is angry. How do I respond to him or her in a way to help the child figure out what they need? Alright, so that there is the end of procedure 5. Alright, so let's turn back over to the lesson plan and read procedure 6. It says activity. Ask students to predict what an effective anger management plan might consist of. Record answers on the board. Have volunteers read the general tips for teaching anger management skills on pages 54 to 58. Focus on the 10th point. Be creative when giving out consequences. Have students form groups with 3 or 4 people in each group. Distribute a cutout from page 7C to each group and instruct students to brainstorm creative consequences for the behavior on their cutout. Allow time for students to share their answers with the group. And as I was reading that, I thought to myself, a creative consequence. When you're little, you don't like to hear those two words together. When you hear something creative, you think of the word reward, or mommy's going to give me something, or something like that. When you hear the word creative consequence, you're thinking, what is that? But with children, they're very smart. And I've said this before already. They're very smart. And, where you can have one child sitting in a timeout chair for 5 minutes, the next child might enjoy doing that. Or another child might like writing sentences or something like that. So each child is different. And these are how these tips really go into that as well. Each child is different. So you have to see and feel out children, whether it's your child or you're teaching a class with children in it. So let's turn to page 54. Alright, and it says general tips for teaching anger management skills. And this is not just for anger management skills, but I say it's for any situation throughout the day, day in, day out. So we have point 1, keep your cool. Think about it. Why is it important to keep your cool? If the child is screaming, possibly you might have more than one child screaming. Why is it important to keep your cool as the adult? And the answer is, remember who's in charge. And I remember my mom always tells me, the tail doesn't wag the dog wags the tail. And it's just like that for parent, teacher, and children. The children are not in charge. It's the adult who is in charge. You are the authority and the mature adult who should model how to handle every situation in a positive, moral way. When a parent flies off the handle, it teaches his children to do the same. Stay calm and in control. And when you hear those words, what do you think of? Stay calm and in control. We went over it in the self-control unit. The RESPOND acronym. Alright, and it's the very first one. And the RESPOND acronym is on self-control page 107. It says, remain calm. Evaluate the situation. Stay objective. Practice being polite. Overcome the desire to retaliate or hold resentment or hold on to your anger. Negate the negative and determined. Alright, so it says here, use a low tone of voice when directing any angry, out of control child. Raising your voice will only make situations worse. Bend down to a young child's level and maintain eye contact when instructing a child that has lost his or her self-control. And this goes straight back to teaching, whether it's teaching verbally or by example. When I was reading this, I remember I tried to think back, and this is how powerful the effectiveness of a teacher or a parent or any type of guardian, because I never remembered my parents flying off the handle. I tried to think of a situation or did I do something, but I never remember them getting out of control angry. Yes, they expressed disappointment when I did something that I wasn't supposed to do, but I never saw them fly off the handle, get angry, or anything like that. And it teaches your children, well, if my dad or my mom handles it like this, I should think I should handle it like this too. And that's that teaching by example. When words are going in one ear and coming out the other, examples are there. You teach by your example. And thus, children can grow up not liking to get angry. I've told this class multiple times, I don't like getting angry for multiple reasons. One, I don't sound very nice when I get angry. My voice does this high pitch. It's not nice. I know that's not a hardcore reason not to get angry, but it's one of the reasons to recognize why it's important to control one's emotions. It's that recognizing that there is a problem, then dealing with that problem. All right, so let's go to point 2. It says, be patient. And remember, we went over the definition of patient on page 18 of this book. And it says here, let's see. Patient. Patient is demonstrating self-control and remaining calm through setbacks. Whether the setback be your child is screaming, your child missed their nap time and they're screaming, your child is hungry. Any setback like that. In parenting, we must realize, or basically in life, we must realize there will be setbacks. And everyone should know that, because welcome 2020. That was a setback for many people. Many people had plans, but did we get to accomplish what we wanted to the extent we thought we were going to accomplish them? No, we did not. Life has setbacks, and as life has setbacks, parenting has setbacks as well. So the key point of that is to be patient. Every parent needs a big dose of a positive character trait of patience, because no lesson is taught just once. Children learn through repetition, so expect to patiently teach and reteach. Have you ever taught a child, whether it be math, reading, or something as simple as the alphabet, or saying morning when you go into a room? Have you ever told them once? They have it down. They understand it. Just one time. Have you ever dealt with that? Just one time? I don't see anybody shaking their heads yes. No. And that's not a bad thing. Repetition is a great thing. And we have to realize that we can't just expect to say it once and the child to understand and remember. That is why rules are there. No running in the house. That's why we put up rules. That's why we have a reward system to reinforce what the child must do in their mind. Take, for example, this is, for me, the ultimate example. The author of The Peaceful Solution has been teaching the Peaceful Solution for over 40 years. And he's been reiterating to us, have self-control, use active listening, show respect to everyone, over and over again. Does he get tired of telling us? No. And that's the same thing we must have for our children. We can't expect to tell them once and then they remember. And this goes right back to expectations. Having no high expectations in yourself or the child as well. This is where goal setting comes in perfectly, where you have a goal for the child. You have a goal for yourself as well too. All right, so take the time to teach, aka educate, as well as correct. Many parents are quick to correct, but we can also use a child's misbehavior as a teaching tool. Look for opportunities to explain to your child why something is wrong. the consequences of their choice, and the benefits of making a right choice. This does not mean go into a long lecture. In fact, for toddlers, keep your explanation short and simple because young children have a short attention span. And we as adults that could be for us too. Because if you sit down and someone tells you over and over in multiple different ways, do not do this, or don't do that, don't do this. If they keep telling you over and over again, eventually you're just going to stare at them, and at the end of that you're going to be wondering, what did she say? And it's exactly the same for children. And this is important of why we have to teach them the correct way. And it draws me back to when we first started learning the peaceful solution. What was one of the very first, it was like second, third thing that we learned? Does anyone remember? We went over the road less traveled. Who else remembers what we went over? One of the very first few things that they taught us. Before we got into the true definition of character versus personality. Anyone? It starts with a V. Say it again. I think you have it. Say it one more time. There you go. They taught you the definition of value. Otherwise, we'd be learning the peaceful solution, but we'd realize that I have no cause for this unless you see the value in it. Something doesn't stick with a person, or a person doesn't remember something until they see the value in it. And it's the same for children. We have to tell them why this is important. You don't touch the stove because it's hot. If you touch the stove and it's hot, you'll get burned. If you get burned, you get hurt. And when you're hurt, what do? You cry. You teach them what occurs step by step. And that's important because when they grow older, they know to think out their decisions before they actually do it. They know to think out their words before they actually say it. And this is why it's important to start as little children and go on. Remember, all of this is in parenthood. Parents are the first teachers. We teach them by example, what they say, how they act, because when they go to school, they'll surely act out what they see at home, regardless of what you do. You can tell them, my child is so perfect. And they go to school and they're taking from other students, they're stealing this, they're yelling at the teacher. They do what they see. And it goes back to what we learned in the intermediate series, monkey see, monkey do. That is literally what children do. All right, so let's jump down to point 4. Use active listening. Active listening is a powerful tool that helps children talk out rather than act out. Oftentimes, when a child feels disappointed, rejected, or envious, these primary emotions are covered up by anger. This goes right back to the self-control unit where it says anger is a secondary emotion. You know, they're not angry because of you. They're angry because of what they're feeling or because of what a situation that occurred that they don't know how to express properly that occurred to them that they don't know. Active listening hears not only the words that are being said, but also the intent of or true feelings behind the words. Active listening also conveys concern, love, and acceptance. The peaceful solution self-control unit for schools goes into great detail about how to practice active listening. We suggest that you use it as a resources, and that was self-control unit pages 93 to 98. All right, and it just says here. Alright, so on page 93 of the self-control unit, it says listening also requires self-control. Self-control when listening means to make sure through active listening that you are not only hearing what is being said, but that you also understand the intent behind the words. And also tips for active listening on page 95. Point 1. Reflect what the speaker is feeling. Remember that words and what the feeling behind the words are not always the same. Do not interrupt or change the topic of your conversation until you are sure that the person has finished speaking. When you are actively listening, use an appropriate amount of eye contact. And I was thinking, point number 2, do not interrupt or change the topic of your conversation until you are sure that the person has finished speaking. We teach this to our children at a young age. I remember my mom always taught me, don't interrupt two adults when they're speaking. No, it goes back to actively listening and also teaching the child there's a time and place for everything. When two adults are speaking, that is not your cue. If they say something that you know about, that's not your cue to interrupt and add into this conversation. And that all goes into active listening. Active listening plays a key part in teaching our children how to grow into adults that can contribute to society. When active listening plays an important role, so does respecting the person next to you, respecting yourself. That is what active listening leads to. Alright, so let's go down to point number 5. Don't expect for perfect results right away. Give your child the guidance of what is expected and then allow him an opportunity to correct his behavior. Think back to when you were first learning to improve on a positive character trait. Did you perfect your behavior right away? No, of course not. So don't set your expectations of your child beyond realistic goals. Keep your expectations age appropriate as well. You can't expect a 2-year-old to respond like a 12-year-old. Remember, each child is different. And this is it's plainly shown, especially in where there's a home with multiple children. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos where it's 3 children. And the parent gives the first child a cup of juice. First child's like, thanks, Mom. Second child is, well, I wanted milk, but I'll take this. And the third child, I don't want that. And it just goes to show how each child is different, where, my child was walking at 8 months old, or my child was talking at 8 months old. Each child is different, and having realistic expectations is important, and that means we cannot expect for them to be perfect right away, because we have to draw back on when we were younger. Were we perfect right away? I'm sure we like to think so, but I guarantee you that was not the fact that we were perfect right away. There were things that we had to work on, and our parents and teachers were there for us. That just like our parents and teachers were there for us, we have to be there for the children as well. And now for point 6, I'm going to turn it over to our next teacher.
Hello, everyone. So excited to continue with the peaceful solution. Let's give her another round of applause. She really covered her points well. And just to help us reiterate, as we're learning repetition is great, I just want to touch on a few things that she brought out. And when she gave us those questions in Procedure 5 about before you deal with a child who is angry, so you have an angry child, ask yourself these questions. What am I feeling right now? Why do we go back to ourselves? I thought we were focusing on the child that's so angry over there, right? But no, we want to look at how we are feeling so we know better how to handle the situation. That's very, very important because our emotions can get stirred up by somebody else being angry, can't they? That's very common. How many of you have ever been upset and angry because of somebody else doing something to you, right? Oh, I see all the hands going up. Exactly. So when you see someone who is angry, out of control, ask ourselves, why do I feel this way? What am I feeling? Am I frustrated? Am I disappointed? We have a whole gambit of emotions that can run through our mind all at once at that time. So we really want to pay attention to us first, because that will control how we react to them. And then, of course, what does a child need? So many times a child could be hungry. A child could have a sticker in their foot. A child could have just had a conflict with a sibling. You don't know exactly what's going on. So just because you see them angry doesn't mean you have to come down hard on them because they're angry, right? And one thing I really want to reiterate in this class is that children's brains are still developing. We have expectations as parents that we think they should be like this, and we have them in a little box, in a little bubble, whatever you want to call it. But our expectations can be unrealistic at times. And sometimes we think, okay, I told you before, why are you doing that again? Well, she just covered it because they need that repetition. The brain is still developing. It can't always remember these things. So that's why we want to be patient and calm and repeat it again, possibly change the way we say something, because the first way they might not have connected with it. And I always say the best thing to do is when you give an instruction to a child, ask them to repeat back to you what you just told them to do. Because if they can say back what they did, then you know they understand. Okay? But a lot of times, I told you to clean your room. Well, that can be overwhelming to a child. What do you mean clean my room? It's just a disaster in there. I don't know where to begin. So that's where the mother can come in and say, well, let me help you. Let's do it together. And then you show that child how to do it. So everything is done more peacefully. And then I really liked how she went into those general tips for teaching anger management skills. That's what we're going to cover for the next several pages here. And these are very, very important. And I think number one, keeping your cool. Is that an easy thing to do? No, not usually. If you see somebody else doing something that you didn't want them to do, and now they're upset because you might have told them, don't do it that way, or I don't like the way you did it, or whatever led to a conflict, then you remaining calm is going to help them. And often when you have two children, their brains are still developing, right? And their brains can't quite seem to come into an agreeable limit, okay, we got to stop this. Then that's where a mother needs to step in. A mother can't just expect children to do those kind of things. You have to show them how to do these things. And our example, as she reiterated over and over again, is the most important way. And that's where we can set those limits. We can explain, wait a minute, hold on, this is what we need to do at this point. And patience, I don't think we can ever say we have too much patience. Patience is something that it'll get tested 10 times during a day in different situations, right? But we're focusing on that anger management here. That's the key. And of course, I brought my self-control book because it really covers a whole chapter on anger is in this book, and it's just awesome for that. So, we're learning. This program is established for us as teachers to teach you all as teachers how parents can be better equipped. So as we grow and we get more information, we will know better how to help ourselves first, and then our children, and then we will also be able to help our class as well, right? And that's our goal. That's what we're working towards. Okay, so then I think teaching over correction is so vital in that third point right there, to teach. Because again, it gets back to our expectations. We can think, we know that child understands what I just told him to do. Why are they not doing it right? But we really need to go back and educate again. It's back on us. If they didn't do it right, we didn't educate them right. That's why it's got to fall back on us as the parents, as the authorities, and work on helping them get that right. And I think point number 4 is the number one key to help connect with children. Because that's ultimately what we want to do. We're trying to win the will of the child, right? Not be in conflict with the child all the time, but learn to win the will of that child. And you can do that first and foremost by just listening, by just finding out what's going on inside. And that can change every day. It can be different. And if you have a multiple of children in your home, each child is going to handle things differently. You think, okay, I got this one down pat. Now I really taught them how to, handle their anger, and then another child comes along, and it's totally different. It can be a total different situation because our personalities are different, our character development is different, so we have to kind of start fresh every time with every single child. And then sometimes that child might be going through something that you don't even know about. So that's where you pick up this point number 4 on active listening skills, and you really have to apply what's going on. And I want to go to page 63 in the the self-control unit. This is on how to work it out. Okay, page 63. Work it out, don't fight it out, because children are so quick to want to fight it out, right? This comes naturally to them. And it says another common anger trap lies in using abusive behavior, that's a forceful behavior, as a means to resolve conflicts. Just because you have a conflict with someone does not mean you have to resort to verbal or physical abuse to get your point across. Conflicts are not excuses to become angry. Conflicts are not excuses to become angry. Conflicts are simply disagreements between people with different opinions, needs, and wants. As you will learn in the next chapter, respectful communication and interaction, as well as listening to each other, can resolve any conflict a lot faster than anger ever could. And then it has a little straight talk down at the bottom. Don't use anger as a way to shield yourself from having to deal with some of your true feelings. Did you catch that? To shield yourself from having to face, what are you feeling right now, as it said over there. Many people respond with anger rather than expressing their emotions. Sometimes people don't even know what they're feeling. They have to really tune in and say, why do I feel the way I'm feeling? What am I feeling and why do I feel that way? If we can focus on that and then we teach the children how to recognize their emotions and to be able to tune into them, then that anger is not so quick to jump in and override the emotion there, right? So if you're feeling hurt, disappointed, or afraid, anger is not a shield to hide behind. It is okay to calmly express some of your other feelings. And that's part of that active listening. What are you feeling right now? I can see that you're angry. I can see that you feel disappointed. You didn't like the way that your sister just responded to you, right? And you can help them to identify it. But that's going to take a little bit of research on our part. We can't just assume they're going to know it. And that's the bottom line. Okay, so let's continue over here on page 55 of the parenting unit. So with these active listening skills, we're going to work it out, not fight it out, and pay attention to what the emotions are that are going on rather than just let the anger kick in. So she started there in point 5, don't expect perfect results right away. Give your child a guidance of what is expected, reasonable expectations, I'll emphasize, and then allow him an opportunity to correct his behavior so they can fix it. Don't you like to fix it when you mess up? I need to. I know when I make mistakes, I like an opportunity to go back and fix it. And sometimes it's just a matter of humbling yourselves. And we can demonstrate that for our children. I didn't mean to lose my anger, sweetie. What I really meant to say was, I didn't like the way you answered me. It was a bit disrespectful. Instead of flying off the handle, don't ever talk to me, you'll always talk to me. You know, those nevers and always flare up out of us quick, right? So we can take that time to fix it. It's okay. And give a child, the younger the child is, the more you can take them literally by the hand and walk them through what they need to say and do. That's so very important. And then as they get older, they're going to have more capability. They're going to have more knowledge and experience of how to handle it properly. It says, think back to when you were first learning to improve on a positive character trait. Did you perfect your behavior right away? No, of course not. So don't set your expectations of your child beyond realistic goals. It's like learning to walk, okay? So imagine little toddlers when they learn to walk. Some children learn to walk as young as 9 months old. Have you seen really young children do that? Others might need to wait until they're 13 months old or 14 months old. Every child is different. Does that mean that the child that took a little longer didn't do it right? Was there something wrong with them? No. So the expectation of the parent is very important, and we can apply this to every aspect of a child's life. Because again, they are still growing and developing, and we have to give them that opportunity to do it in their pace, at their time. So not all siblings behave in the same way, at the same ages, and along the way. So we just have to give them room on that. So number 6, let's move on to number 6. Talk to your child about his or her behavior and how you plan to help him demonstrate proper conduct. Don't try to explain a new behavior plan when your child is out of control. You think you're going to get anywhere with a frustrated, upset, angry child? Now listen, sweetie, can you just listen for a minute? Let's just talk about it. They are not going to listen to you right then. That's where we're going to get on the next page about that. Let them calm down. Sometimes mommies need to calm down too, right? So you're going to give them that opportunity, and the time to do it is before the child's next outburst when he is calm. You can always talk to somebody better when they're calm. Don't you agree? It's so much easier at that time. When you talk with him, let him tell him in a loving tone, that's going to be in a calm tone, that you are concerned about his behavior. And why? Why? Because he's kicking, hitting, name-calling, or throwing things even when he is angry. And that's a wrong and unacceptable behavior. You know, you explain to them when they're calm, the way you just hit your brother, what do you think that did? Did that help him? Did that cause hurt and harm? So you get them to recognize that what they did was a wrong choice. It caused hurt. It caused harm. How would you feel if that occurred to you? When you ask those kind of a question, a child says, of course not. I wouldn't like that either. So you reason with them. That's a reasoning mind as they're still trying to develop here. Let your child know that you want him to behave appropriately even when he is angry. Tell your child about the rules and reward system as well as calm down time. We're going to get to those on the next page. And explain in a simple terms the purpose of the reward system and what behaviors will result in having calm down time. Now, you as a parent, do you like to have a calm down time? When you're upset with a situation at work, do you like a calm down time? We all benefit from it, right? That's why the RESPOND acronym is so important, because when we can remain calm, then that's going to help us think more clearly. We're going to be more rational in our thoughts. Okay, so let's look at point number 7. Institute a calm down time. This is a very effective way to help a child regain his or her self-control. The calm down time for children should mirror adults' times who, before a fit of anger, stops to count to 10 in order to calm down. So if you feel we've got these body language, you might be clenching your fists, you could feel your neck getting kind of red and tense in your shoulders, whatever physical expressions you feel going on in your body that you know, okay, I'm getting angry. Then we can say 10, 9, 8. I think counting backwards is actually better because your brain is tricked into thinking harder and it takes you out of that trance, if you will, of being angry, right? So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Now you're going, what was I angry about? I don't even remember. So it really helps. It really helps a lot. When first initiating this behavioral intervention, it is best to explain and tell the child that you are giving her some time now to calm down and stop the crying, screaming, kicking, or hitting. And give them their space on that. It's okay. You don't have to keep running in and checking on them. You calm down yet? Why aren't you calmed down yet? What's wrong with you? You should have been calmed down by now. What's going on here? You know, and you just like almost drive them more crazy by bothering them that time. That's a time to just let them have their space and think about what they just did. And do it in a calm way. And that helps a lot. When first initiating this behavioral intervention, it is best to explain and tell the child that you're giving her some time now to calm down and stop the crying, screaming, kicking, or hitting. In this manner, the child will learn that controlling her behavior is the reason for the calm down time. Oh, I can associate now, Mommy, that if I get out of control, you're going to separate me a little bit and help me to calm down, and then I can get control of myself again. Because that's what self-control is. It's like a self-governing. We're trying to help these little children learn how to self-govern themselves. So calm down time. When directing a child into calm down time, bend down to the child's level and maintain eye contact. I say do that with children on a regular basis. If you are dealing with young children that are short, then you yourself, if you're just talking about a butterfly or you're talking about how well they did on their math little episode, you know, whatever it is, lower yourself down to their level. When you think about, I'm sure we can all think back when we were children and we look up at these adults, you know, they look so big and scary and tall, and it can be very overwhelming at that time. So anytime you can get down to a child's level, it will help them calm down better and understand that you're really communicating with them. You're making that connection with them. So speak in a firm, low tone of voice. Do not yell or scream. You can physically put the child into the designated calm down area gently but firmly if she will not walk there on her own. If the child comes out before you see a change in behavior, simply put the child back. And don't sit there and argue with the child. That's not a time to have this long discussion. I told you to get in the corner. Why are you out of the corner? Blah, 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 and your mouth is just running like 90 miles a minute. That child is not going to hear a word you say, and that child is only going to escalate in their anger and their screaming and their yelling and their hollering. Don't you agree with that? So calm down time can vary depending on the situation or age of the child. When he shows that he has regained his composure, talk with him about his behavior. Now again, that's regained his composure. He's calmed down now. He's come out of calm down time. He's got the little sniffles, you know, and they realize that, oh, I just messed up and I really feel bad, Mommy. That's a great time down as well. Remember to handle the situation appropriately by maintaining your composure. And that can be the biggest challenge. As an adult, when you have an out-of-control child, and especially if it has gone on for time after time after time, or now the child has grown up, because, you know, frankly, let's be honest, as mothers, as parents, sometimes there's a tendency to just kind of ignore it, like, I don't want to deal with it. And, well, you know, the child is just that way. Well, watch out, because that child is going to grow up. And those little cute little tantrum episodes that child might have, and you just kind of don't really pay much attention to them or address them with them and train them in that process, because parents can become very passive when there's situations like that, and they just don't even know what to do. That's why we have a training program, so that they know how to act. But if you become passive in those kind of situations and you allow that child to grow up and get to become a teenager, you have World War III on your hands. And it will not be easy. It's never too late. You can still teach the peaceful solution, but you have to be very, very careful to start this, if you can, at the youngest of age. The younger the age, the better it will be when that child gets older. And I love what the teacher before me said. You know, her parents never got angry and out of control. They remain calm. So she's one of the most calm people I know. She just has such a calm demeanor about her. And we can see why, because that's what she grew up with. So that's wonderful. So now we're going to move on to point 8. Remember to use rules and reward system. And remember, we're talking at the beginning of this book about morals, morality. Morality is rules. It's establishing guidelines. It's setting boundaries. Children thrive on having boundaries. It's very important that they know, I can only go this far, and they will test it, and they will put their little toe over the line just to see what occurs. But that's where we become consistent in our keeping and maintaining of those rules. Okay, so if your child's behavior is problematic with 2 to 3 episodes of throwing a tantrum, hitting or kicking in one day, develop rules and reward systems to target those specific behaviors, or add a rule that concerns anger management to an existing reward system. For example, a rule that would address the behavior of hitting and kicking is keep hands and feet to yourself. Okay, and I want to go back to page 47 because they covered this in the previous chapter, but it's such a great one to remember because you don't want to overwhelm a child. You can overwhelm a child if you're not careful. This was in chapter 6, a few rules about developing rules on page 47. Make sure that the rules are thoroughly considered and evaluated before they are implemented in order to avoid confusing the child. There's nothing worse than a child is told one thing one day and then the next thing the rules change. That's very critical to avoid that kind of a situation. Keep the rules positive and focused on the desired behavior you want from your child. Keep rules simple. Don't have to get a long discourse of how to keep this rule and weigh it all out. Be careful not to present too many rules at once, just 1 or 2 at a time, and do not expect your child to remember or embrace the rules immediately. Constant reminders and consistency on the part of the parent are absolutely necessary. So that's very important right there. Now let's go on to page 56 on number 9. Process the experience. If you must utilize the calm down time, be sure to talk to your child once he has regained composure. Ask the child to process his behavior and the consequences of his actions. Use a firm tone or a calm tone of voice and maintain eye contact while you're speaking. Be sure to ask the child why he was given a calm down time. Let him tell you in his own words. When they can express it back to you, then you know they got it. Something got in the brain there to help him next time. Ask him which rule he broke and what he will do the next time. Lastly, be sure he apologizes for this behavior. And here's an example of a typical processing dialogue. Anyone want to read these? Oh, we can't do 2 mics. We could do 2 at a table. Would that work? Do we have a roaming mic? Yes? Okay, so why don't, do I have a volunteer? Hadassah and Mother, would you 2 like to do it? Oh, great. Okay. So mother and child demonstrate this wonderful little processing dialogue for us here.
Okay. I'm glad that you are now practicing self-control. Can you tell me why you had to calm down?
I was angry and I threw something.
What's the rule about throwing things?
Not to throw things?
The next time I give you an instruction, what will you do?
I'll do what you tell me to do.
Keeps going on the next page. It's on the next page too.
What does it show us about yourself when you follow the rule that I have set for you?
I know it shows that I'm obedient and that I'm showing you respect.
What else do you need to say?
I apologize, Mom.
I accept your apology. I know that you will do better next time.
Let's clap for them. Great job. Okay, so that's very important there to just see that dialogue that you can carry on and make it real, make it sincere. Be transparent with your children and let them know, help them see where they made a mistake. And if you as a parent made any mistakes along the way, it's okay to say, I apologize too. That's very important. And I like to add when I apologize for breaking your rules and throwing something, however that might be. So it's okay to express specifically what you're apologizing for. But we know that patience and consistency are key to a child's success. That's patience on our part and consistency are key to their success. And that's in learning how to control their anger. So will the dialogue with your child go this smoothly on the first few attempts? Probably not. In fact, trying to process the situation sometimes results in the child throwing a tantrum all over again. If this occurs, place the child back in calm down time and wait until he or she is calm. It usually takes only a few times for this to occur before the child understands that you are serious about what behaviors you expect. And that's the role as a parent that we have. We can't be wishy-washy on our rules. We cannot become passive when we see the child do something that we know is against our rules and say, well, I've got a headache today, I really had a long day, I'm not going to correct that child. And they just let it go. And before you know it, this child has got confusion in their mind and well, last time you let me get away with it, why are you picking on me now? So you can see how that consistency is so very, very important. It's vital to the success of your child, okay? If this occurs, place the child back in calm down time and wait till he is calm. It usually takes only a few times to occur before the child understands that you are serious about what behaviors you expect. Remember, patience is the key. Always take the time to process the experience. Make sure that the child knows why she is given a consequence and is able to plan a better way to handle the situation when it occurs again. And be ready, because it'll occur again, and with repetition, it's going to become a pattern in their life. And that's really what it's all about. A child can develop the habit of getting angry. A child can develop a habit of lashing out. A child can develop a habit of speaking mean things. I mean, it becomes a habit in them, and that's automatic response. It just automatically comes out when a situation arises. And the sad part about that is when it occurs at home and it becomes a habit at home, next thing you know, they go into another area, and there it pops out there, and the people are going, wow, how did this occur? But it's because they've got into the habit of being able to do that at home. And that's why it's so important for parents to take the responsibility and guide that child back to a better way, to a more successful, peaceful outcome with the people they interact, because then that will carry with them wherever they go. And this little key right here, patience is a key to great parenting, the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. So we've learned a lot. We're going to pick up right there on point number 10. We're going to go back to procedure 6 when we look at that. So we've looked at these general tips. You know, really pay attention to these details. There's so much information in this book about how we as parents have a responsibility. It's the toughest job in the world. It is the most rewarding job in the world, but it takes diligence on our part. It takes effort. It isn't something you can just be casual with. If we want our children to succeed, we have to truly put that effort into raising them in a peaceful way that they can then be productive and peaceful citizens in society. Does that sound great to you? I think so too. All right, so that ends our class for today. And if you all please stand. Thank you very much for your time.